Welcome to the Museum of Ventura County. I'm Renee Talent, Manager of Historic Collections here at the museum, and your host for Feast or Flop. For this recipe, I'm collaborating with Adam Hart, the director of the Culinary Arts program at Oxnard College. Today, Adam's dessert is potato caramel cake.
So I think the one that we're working on right now is going to be something called a potato caramel cake.
Yes. The potato caramel cake comes from a cookbook from Moore Park, and this is found in the Pioneers section of that cookbook. And it's the recipe of someone named Mary Cornett, who came to Moore Park in 1907. So that's where we're gonna start.
Okay.
My favorite thing about this recipe is that the ingredient or the instructions are just prepare like any cake recipe, period.
Yeah. And when you look at the ingredients, what that really means is that we're going to take the butter and the sugar and we're going to cream it together, and then we're going to add our eggs, and then we're going to add our dry ingredients to it. Should we just get started with this? What do you think? Okay,
let's do it.
Great. So the recipe itself is the first two ingredients, and generally when you're reading a recipe, it goes in order of how you should be including the ingredients. So the first two ingredients are butter and sugar. So here I have the boiled potatoes. I've put them, you start with cold water, bring it up to a boil, and you let them cook until you can put a paring knife cleanly through them and out of them. And that's how you know they're done, okay? Now, a lot of people will use a hand masher or something like that. Personally, at home, I have what's called a potato ricer, which is you put the potatoes in, you squeeze, and it comes out of those little holes. That's the best way to get non-lumpy potatoes. But here in a commercial kitchen, we actually use one of these, which is a cone shape. Where
I've never seen this happen with potatoes. I've only seen the potato mashers that have the little like
this over here
waffle.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and it's great, but it's kind of in the kitchen we always want to use something that has multi-purpose. So this, we're straining pasta, we're mashing potatoes, we're doing whatever needs to be done. And you can see that as I push on this,
it's like it looks like very finely grated Parmesan cheese.
That's exactly what it should look like.
Coming out the edges.
Exactly. So I've got half a cup of whole milk. Add to this also.
Yeah, luckily the recipe does give you 2 hints.
Yes.
They tell you that sweet milk.
Sweet milk, I'm guessing probably was just 1907, kind of straight from the cow.
Yeah.
And probably tasted pretty good and made everything in this taste wonderful also. But we're going to use pasteurized whole milk, which will be just fine and a little bit safer.
Moore Park at the time when this recipe dates is just really getting started as a city. So you'd be driving a while to go to a general store.
Right. So this looks like cake batter to me.
Looks like cake batter to me too.
So I think what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the last step, which is preparing like a cake recipe, which would be to add it in. Now this calls for a loaf pan. for us to put it into a loaf pan. I noticed a lot of the recipes, call for a loaf pan. I think that was probably the catch-all.
Today is the day of loaf.
Yes, it certainly is. But I think for this recipe, most people would be serving this as a cake and not necessarily as like a pound cake style. So I've opted to use an actual cake pan on this one. I think it's going to cook a little bit faster. And it's going to give a more consistent product because it's only this thin.
Yeah.
If we put it into a loaf pan, I have a feeling that by the time the interior is cooked, the outside might be a little bit too overcooked. So this is going to give us a more consistent product. We're going to start adding in our last ingredient, which is the recipe calls for just chopped nuts.
Yes.
But we're using walnuts.
We're using walnuts. So in Moore Park specifically, it would have been walnuts. Around the turn of the century, between 1890 to up all the way to like 1950, 1960, walnuts were what we were growing here in Ventura County. So all Southern California had kind of a walnut belt from Orange County all the way up through Santa Barbara County, and so Ventura was part of that. And between Saticoy and Moore Park, that whole area all the way up to Santa Paula, that was walnuts.
Wow.
So she was using walnuts.
There you go. Well, that's good. You know that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I would have just grabbed whatever.
Yeah.
So the walnuts go in, and this we're gonna hand mix. So I'm gonna release it from the side here.
This is when we were talking about it's acted a little bit like a brownie.
Yes.
With the cracks that are kind of encircling the inside.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because of all of the cocoa powder. A full cup of cocoa powder has turned it into a brownie cake.
It's essentially almost a brownie at this point. Let's go ahead and give this a try. I don't know how this is gonna work, but I have not heard a thump.
Thump.
Listen.
Wow.
Listen, that came out
I
really
didn't think
nice.
that was good. I doubted you. I'm so sorry.
No, you are right to doubt me on that one. To be honest, it kind of has this really nice kind of caramely look to it. So
yeah.
That might be why it's
maybe some of those sugars like settled here at the bottom.
I think it might have. So I think when we actually cut into this and taste it, I think
we'll find the caramel.
We'll find out if it's got that caramely flavor.
It's time. It's time for us to taste these things. This is what the whole video, the whole process has been leading up to, is figuring out if they worked and if they're any good.
Judging by the way they look, and I know I mentioned this in the kitchen, I'm really happy with the way they came out. I think that the recipes were, pretty spot on with the amounts and the cook time. Even in a commercial kitchen, everything seemed to translate really nicely.
I just want to thank you before we taste again. I want to thank you very much for joining us. And they would not have turned out like this on my own. Trying to butcher the chicken on my own would have been a disaster. Trying to bake on my own, trying to loaf on my own. It was enormously enjoyable and helpful to have you shepherd us through this process.
I enjoyed my time with you guys as well. And if you ever want to, you can always, you've got my phone number, FaceTime me. If you're ever just stuck in a recipe somewhere, you've got me as a resource. We also offer classes at Oxnard College, in the summertime and fall and spring, for cooking. So, this is some of the stuff that we'd be doing, a lot of research and development of recipes as well. And a lot of what a chef does is getting some recipes and trying to make it their own or trying to figure out if they're going to work or not work. So realistically, we got really lucky with 3 recipes that you picked.
Yes, I did. I have done the lion's share of the work.
I was so angry in the beginning when I'm looking at all these recipes, but as they started coming together, as we're looking at them now, I think that they were really good picks, and this is going to be interesting to taste.
Here's our baking skills.
Someone might be out there going like, I wouldn't call that a skill. But
it smells good.
It smells good, and it has that color that I think that has a little bit of a caramel color to it. We were talking about, and I'm interested to see how it tastes. So
I am too.
go right
All
ahead.
right, new fork.
Yep. Hmm.
It tastes like a spice cake.
Yeah.
I don't really get the caramel.
Mm-mm.
I don't really get the chocolate. And
No.
there's a lot of chocolate in it.
There's a lot of chocolate, and it's not overly sweet. So although it looked like we put a lot of, sugar in there with 2 cups, it's really not that much,
Mhm.
comparatively speaking, when we started dumping in all of the other ingredients and looking at the ratios, that really just wasn't a lot of sugar. So this is not meant to be an overly sweet cake. So I think it's lacking in that sweetness, but those spices are really coming out.
They are.
I
They
think
are.
if I had to put this on my menu in the bistro,
Might knock those back a little bit.
yeah, I'd take those down just a little bit and put some complementary flavors in there. However, something like this, like on like a Christmas menu
Yeah.
or something, a little bit
Yeah.
more fall, I think it's a little bit difficult to eat this in the dead of summer when it's 100 degrees outside and we're, tasting this. It throws you off just a little bit as well.
It tastes a little gingerbready. Like I'm
100%.
getting gingerbread vibes, and it's the clove and the nutmeg and all
I
those
took a
kind of
bite
things.
like 45 seconds ago and I'm still tasting and it's not going away. And I'm glad this was last because I wouldn't be able to taste anything else.
Yeah.
after any of that.
This is a flavor
Yeah.
packed bite.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the actual chew of it and the cook is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Overall, not bad. It just needs a little bit of zhuzhing up. We need to add a few things to it. Chantilly cream, a berry. It needs a berry.
Yeah.
Like,
something to brighten it.
oh, absolutely needs some brightness in there because this is all base notes right now.
Yeah.
But, that can be added. That can be added.
It's my least favorite of the
Yeah,
3.
still good. Least favorite. I
Yeah.
agree with that 100%.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. It was truly a pleasure,
This
and
was
I
fun.
really appreciate it. I've had a great time.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having it here at Oxnard College. And, thanks for tasting what could have possibly been a complete flop on all of these. But I appreciate you having me on. This was fun.
So all of these recipes are going to be available online for you guys if you want to try them at home. You'll be able to decide for yourself what was a feast and what was a flop. Maybe you'll have different opinions than us. And happy cooking. All of the Feast or Flop recipes will be available for you to create and enjoy at home. You can see them on the museum website at venturamuseum.org, broadcast on CAPS Channel 6, and on CAPS Radio at 104.1 FM.